Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. The screen lit up while I was brushing my teeth. Just a random buzz on the sink counter. A video call from my wife. At 12:09 a.m. That was strange. She was supposed to be at a client retreat 2 states away. A conference. Late meetings. Wine mixers. Networking, she'd called it. With that carefully rehearsed tone I hadn't learned to doubt until it was already too late. I spit, wiped my mouth, and answered. No greeting. No hey babe. No panic like she'd dialed me on purpose. Just chaos. The camera was angled awkwardly on a nightstand, like it had fallen over. All I could see was part of a hotel suite. Dim lighting, a glass of wine on the edge of a marble counter, and shadows moving in the background. Then I heard it, her voice. Soft, low, laughing. Flirty in a way she hadn't sounded with me in months. Then came his voice. Not mine. Not her manager's. Younger. Cockier. You sure your husband's not going to show up? She giggled. That same giggle I used to hear when I'd tickle her on road trips or whisper nonsense while we were stuck in traffic. Only now it sounded rehearsed, weaponized. No chance, she said. He still thinks I'm in back-to-back panels tomorrow. Poor guy. I even left him a good luck note on the fridge. The laugh that followed. It was what broke me. I watched, frozen, as she walked past the camera, barefoot, in nothing but a robe I didn't recognize. She was holding his tie, pulling him toward the bed. My hands were shaking. The video froze for a moment, then snapped back, giving me a perfect, crystal-clear view of her as she leaned in and whispered something into his ear I couldn't hear. But it didn't matter. She was glowing. Not like someone who was sorry. Like someone who was free. I ended the call without thinking. Just stared at my own hollow reflection in the black screen of my phone, trying not to throw up. For a full minute, I stood there in the bathroom, toothbrush still in my hand, heart pounding like a funeral drum. Then, calmly, I walked to the kitchen, looked at the note she'd left me earlier. Miss you already read heart, and tore it in half. That's when I opened the hallway closet and pulled out the suitcase we hadn't used since our anniversary trip. The one she said we should retire because traveling as a couple is exhausting. I started packing. Not clothes. Not essentials. I started packing evidence. Screenshots. Call logs. Her recent flight confirmation email I remembered seeing by accident. I packed my sense of reality, stuffed between receipts and broken promises. And I walked out. Not with a slam. Not with rage. Just with the quiet weight of a man who realized he was never supposed to see the truth. I sat in my car for what must have been 40 minutes without turning the engine on. Just breathing. Or trying to. The air felt heavier than usual, like it had to squeeze past something in my chest before it could leave again. I wasn't crying. Not yet. But my fingers kept twitching on the steering wheel, like they didn't know what to hold onto anymore. Her call had come from a luxury hotel in Indianapolis. I knew that because earlier in the week, she'd casually left the itinerary open on her laptop. Too casually, like she wanted me to see it and trust it. I'll be busy all day, she'd said, while throwing blouses into her suitcase. Don't wait up. It's a whole weekend of panels and team-building junk. Except the only thing being built, apparently, was a fantasy, one that didn't include me. She never called back. Not that night. Not the next morning. No apology. No frantic explanation. Just silence, like nothing had happened. Like the call had never gone through. Like I hadn't just watched my wife seduce another man on a hotel bed we probably helped pay for together. Instead, someone else called. It was her sister, Haley. We weren't close. Arden always said Haley was too nosy and self-righteous. But we had the kind of relationship where she'd text me on holidays or send dumb memes when she was bored at work. But this time, she wasn't joking. Lyle, she said the moment I picked up, are you okay? I didn't answer. Just pressed the phone to my ear like her voice might fix something. She told me what happened. Haley continued. Well, not everything. Just that you overreacted and stormed off. And then she blocked you? Blocked me. I hadn't even tried calling her back. I was too stunned, too humiliated. But something in Haley's tone told me there was more. Listen, Haley said, lowering her voice. I wasn't going to get involved, but Arden's been acting weird for months. Like, secretive. Avoiding family stuff. Always glued to her phone. I figured she was just going through something. But now? I think she's been lying to all of us. I finally spoke. Did she ever mention someone named Colin? Dead silence. Then, Almost whispered. Yeah, that name came up once. She said he was just some guy from a training seminar. Why? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Haley already knew. The change in her voice said everything. Oh my God, I could feel it, the walls closing in. This wasn't just a one-time slip. It wasn't a drunken accident or a misunderstanding. It was deeper, planned, hidden. She had told people different stories, layered lies like a game of Jenga, hoping no one would ever pull the wrong block. Until she pulled it herself. I'm sorry, Lyle, Haley said after a pause. She's not who you think she is. And then she hung up. I stared at the screen again, just like the night before. Only this time, I didn't feel frozen. I felt something rise in me. Not anger, not revenge. Something worse. Something sadder. I realized I had no idea who Arden really was. I had loved a ghost built on routines and memories, while the real her had been slipping away one lie at a time. And the craziest part? A small, broken part of me still wanted her to call. The worst part about being betrayed isn't the lie itself. It's how fast your brain starts rewriting every memory to fit the new truth. Every "I love you." Every shared look across the table. Every lazy Sunday morning suddenly becomes evidence in a case you didn't know you were building. And once you start connecting the dots, you can't stop. That's what happened to me on the drive to Indianapolis. Yeah, I went. I told myself it was just to pick up the last of her things or to deliver divorce papers. Except I hadn't packed anything except breath mints and a half-dead phone charger. What I really wanted was a reason. A sentence. Even a lie to my face would have been better than silence. The hotel was nicer than I expected. Glossy floors, a marble check-in desk, and that fake citrus scent that corporate chains pump into the vents to convince you your money's being well spent. I asked the receptionist if Arden Meeks was still checked in. She gave me that polite, hesitant smile that says, I shouldn't be telling you anything. But then she clicked through a few screens and nodded. Yes, room 827. But I believe she's checking out later today. I forced a smile. Thanks. I'm her husband. I wasn't sure if that was still true, but I said it anyway. It felt like a way to keep some tiny grip on what was left. I took the elevator up alone. My hands were sweaty. Every floor ding made my stomach lurch. What was I hoping to see? A confrontation? A confession? Some dramatic scene where she cried and I walked away like a movie hero? Instead, I knocked. And she opened the door like she'd just seen a ghost. Lyle, she said, frozen in the doorway, wearing one of those hotel robes. Not hers, and nothing underneath. Behind her, I could hear movement. The unmistakable shuffle of someone trying not to be heard. Don't, I said before she could speak. Don't lie. I saw everything. Her eyes narrowed, but not in guilt, in calculation. Like she was trying to figure out how much I really knew. She stepped out into the hallway and closed the door behind her. I didn't mean for you to see that, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Right? I said, my voice cracking. It was supposed to keep happening behind my back. She exhaled like I was making her life harder. Like I was the inconvenience here. That moment, that tiny, cruel breath, flipped something inside me. I had spent the last day drowning in heartbreak, and she stood here like it was just a scheduling conflict. I came here for closure, I said. But I think all I needed was this look on your face. The one where you're not even sorry. She blinked, surprised, but didn't deny it. Just crossed her arms over her chest and said, People grow apart, Lyle. I didn't want to hurt you. You just stopped being what I needed. That was it. No tears. No apology. Just a cold statement like I was an old couch she was finally ready to leave on the curb. I nodded, then turned and walked back to the elevator without another word. When the doors closed, I felt something inside me collapse, but not like a man defeated. More like a man finally waking up. Because now I knew. There was no fixing this. No second chances. No therapy. No us. There was only me, starting over from a place I never thought I'd be, the truth. I didn't drive straight home after leaving the hotel. I told myself I needed air, but the truth is, I didn't want to walk back into the life I'd built with someone who had already walked out of it emotionally months ago. I ended up at a diner on the outskirts of town, the kind that smells like burnt coffee and old vinyl booths, where no one cares if you sit for hours staring at nothing. I ordered pancakes, not because I was hungry, but because Arden hated pancakes. She said they were lazy food. I guess that made it feel like some kind of pathetic rebellion. The server gave me a strange look when I asked for 4 syrups. I didn't explain. What was I going to say? My wife cheated on me, and now I'm aggressively overcompensating with maple and blueberry. I pulled out my phone and started going through old emails. I don't even know why. Maybe I was looking for red flags I'd missed, or just punishing myself by rereading fake "I miss you" messages she used to send when she was out of town. But then I saw it, a forwarded email from our shared cloud account. The subject line was boring, follow-up docs plus weekend schedule. I almost skipped it, but the preview showed one word that made my throat tighten. Colin. I opened the thread and saw the whole conversation. It wasn't meant for me. Arden must have accidentally synced her work email to the wrong inbox. It was a detailed back and forth between her and Colin, starting weeks ago. They joked, flirted, even sent little voice memos that weren't work appropriate. But the final message hit me hardest. It wasn't sexual or romantic. It was colder, calculated. Arden wrote, "Once the merger is finalized, I'll have enough stock to walk away clean. No alimony, no mess. He still thinks we're broke." I felt physically sick. All those nights she insisted we keep a tight budget, the canceled vacation, the arguments about fixing the water heater. It wasn't just neglect. It was manipulation. She was building an exit strategy while I was scraping coupons and thinking we were just going through something. She hadn't just been cheating on me with another man. She was actively rewriting our marriage like a business deal. I sat there, blinking at the screen, trying to process how I could have been so blind. And yet, as angry as I felt, part of me still hurt more from the strategy of it than the affair itself. She didn't fall out of love. She calculated her departure, like I was a liability to be phased out quietly. I forwarded the email to myself, saved everything to a USB drive, and sat there in that diner until the waitress changed shifts and started mopping the floors. I couldn't go home. Not yet. Not with this new version of reality burning in my pocket. But something had shifted. I no longer felt paralyzed. I felt ready, not for revenge, but for truth, for whatever came next, even if it meant tearing the last 10 years apart, piece by piece. By the time I finally walked back into the house, everything felt different. Not because anything had changed physically. The coffee mug she left on the counter 2 days ago was still there, her perfume still clung to the hallway, and her coat still hung neatly by the door, but it all felt like it belonged to someone else. Someone I used to know. Someone who once kissed me goodnight without checking her phone halfway through. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door and stood there, listening. Not for a sound, but for the feeling that this was still my home. It wasn't. I sat on the couch in the dark. I couldn't bring myself to turn on the lights. I just sat there, staring into the vague outline of the dining room where we used to eat together, talk about our days, or argue about stupid things like how I load the dishwasher. Now it felt like a stage that had hosted a performance I hadn't realized was fake. She walked in at exactly 8:17 p.m., acting like nothing was wrong. Not a flicker of panic or guilt. Just her usual cool detachment, like she'd been out running errands, or maybe catching up with an old friend. She didn't expect me to be home. I could see it in the way her step faltered when she saw my silhouette on the couch. "You're back," she said, dropping her purse like this was any other evening. I didn't respond. I just waited. She tilted her head and let out this small, almost amused sigh. "Lyle, are we really doing this passive-aggressive thing now?" I stood up and walked to the table, where I'd already laid out my laptop. One click, and her email opened. I didn't say a word. I just turned the screen so she could see it. Her face changed, but not with guilt. Not even surprise. Just this tight-lipped, calculated shift. Like someone who had just realized their bluff was finally called. She walked over, stared at the screen, and then slowly sat down across from me. I think she thought she could still spin it, that she had one last play. But I was done playing. "You planned to leave me the moment that merger cleared," I said, my voice calm. "Even. You lied about the money. You lied about Colin. You lied about everything." She didn't argue. She just looked at me for a long moment before finally speaking. "You weren't supposed to find out this way." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing I could do that didn't involve screaming. What way was I supposed to find out? A sticky note on the fridge? A forwarded calendar invite to your new life? Arden leaned back in the chair, crossed her legs, and folded her arms. "I was going to tell you once it was finalized. You deserved something." "Something?" I repeated. "Like a pat on the head? A gift card?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Lyle." And there it was. That word. Dramatic. The one she always threw at me when I brought up my feelings. When I asked why she'd been distant. When I cried once because she forgot our anniversary and brushed it off like it was a dentist appointment. I stood up slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just looked her in the eyes and said the only truth I had left. I'm not dramatic. I'm heartbroken. I picked up my laptop, walked down the hallway, and closed the door to the guest room behind me. Because tonight, I wasn't going to sleep next to a stranger again. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her blender. Like clockwork. Same protein shake. Same almond milk container left open on the counter. The normalcy of it felt absurd, like watching someone casually tidy up a crime scene while the body was still warm. I stayed in the guest room until I heard her heels click toward the door. She didn't knock. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just left. Like it was any other Tuesday. Once the silence returned, I stood in our bedroom doorway for a long time. Everything was in place. Her throw pillows arranged perfectly. Her jewelry laid out like exhibits in a museum. Her side of the bed still smooth like she hadn't actually slept there. I opened her closet. Not because I was snooping. I didn't need more evidence. I already had enough to ruin her legally, emotionally, socially. But curiosity has a way of digging deeper when you're already in pain. Then I noticed it. A box shoved behind her winter boots. Gray, dusty, taped twice on each edge like it wasn't supposed to be opened. That was enough to make my heart pound. I pulled it out, sat cross-legged on the floor, and peeled back the tape. Inside were fragments of a life I never knew she was living. Love letters. Not emails. Actual handwritten notes from Colin. Old ones, dated back almost 2 years. His handwriting was arrogant, like someone who didn't care about grammar or punctuation. Most of them were intimate, loaded with pet names and inside jokes I couldn't decode. But some? They were strategic, like battle plans. There was one in particular that nearly made me drop the paper. Don't forget, once your stock options are in your name, it's clean. No court mess. No spousal claims. If you keep playing dumb, he'll sign anything. My name wasn't on that page, but I knew it was about me. It was like being punched in the chest and then reading a manual explaining how the punch was planned months in advance. Below the letters were photos. Of them. Together. On trips I never knew about. There was one of them in front of a cabin with snow in the background. Arden once told me that trip was a company wellness retreat. I'd driven her to the airport myself. Waved goodbye like a fool. And then, at the bottom of the box, I found a small leather notebook. Arden's journal. I hesitated. This felt like a boundary, even now, but I'd already been dragged past every line I ever respected. I opened it. The entries were short. Blunt. She used it like a private scoreboard. Told Lyle I was at brunch. Met Colin instead. Said I had food poisoning. Stayed with Colin overnight. Lyle apologized again today. For being distant. Almost felt guilty. Almost. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking, but not from rage, from clarity. There was no mystery left to solve. No sliver of hope that maybe I was reading it all wrong. This wasn't a gray area or a heat-of-the-moment mistake. This was an architecture of betrayal, designed brick by brick while I was walking around blindfolded, building trust with toothpicks. That's when I realized, staying in this house even one more night was an insult to myself. I packed everything. Not just my stuff. Everything that mattered. Documents. Keepsakes. Things I knew she wouldn't even notice were missing. And then I left the box. Open. On her side of the bed. With one note of my own. No need to keep pretending. I finally see the full picture. I didn't slam the door. I didn't burn the place down. I just drove away. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't check my phone. I'd been staying in a short-term rental about 30 minutes outside the city. A place so empty it echoed when I walked. It had no photos, no smells, no memories. Just white walls and a bed I barely used. I was still floating between rage and disbelief when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, and I wasn't in the mood to talk to anyone, especially not someone offering insurance or asking about my car's warranty. But something told me to pick up, so I did. Lyle? A man's voice said, uncertain. Yes, I replied cautiously. This is Brad Kelman. I'm Arden's regional director. I think I may have called the wrong number. I stayed silent. He wasn't expecting me to say anything. That much was clear. The awkward pause that followed told me he'd already realized it, but curiosity or panic kept him on the line. I knew that name. Arden had mentioned him a dozen times, always in passing, always with a flat voice like he was just another corporate drone. I was calling to confirm the flight info for this weekend, he continued. The company trip. She said you'd be flying out with her. That made me pause. I hadn't heard about any trip, and certainly not one where I was expected to attend. Arden hadn't mentioned anything like that, especially not since I left. She didn't tell you, he added after a long silence, his voice tighter now. She said it was a couple's thing, to celebrate her new partner status. There it was. The promotion she swore she didn't get. The one she cried over, saying they passed her up again, and how she'd never be appreciated for her work. I remember holding her while she wiped fake tears off her cheeks. And now, not only had she gotten the promotion, she was trying to flaunt a fake marriage to the company for optics. To Brad. To everyone. She lied. I finally said, "We're not flying anywhere together. We're not together at all." He went quiet. Then, carefully, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called. This isn't my business." Before he could hang up, I asked, "Who did she say I was?" His pause was answer enough. "She told us you were working overseas," he muttered. "That you supported her from afar. Said you'd be joining soon to settle here permanently. I think she even had a fake email address she used to copy you on planning threads." I laughed. It sounded bitter, hollow, strange even to my own ears. Arden had gone so far out of her way to keep up the illusion, even manufacturing a fake version of me. One that was quiet, cooperative, and completely out of the way, just like she always wanted. Before we hung up, Brad hesitated. "For what it's worth, you didn't deserve this." No, I didn't. But it wasn't about what I deserved anymore. It was about what I was going to do with it. That call changed something. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was identity theft. She hadn't just stepped out of the marriage. She had erased me, rewritten me into a story she could profit from, smile through, and use as a stepping stone for her career. I spent the rest of that day printing documents, compiling everything. Emails, the hotel receipts, the photos I scanned from the box, and now this phone call with a timestamp and name. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning proof. For court. For clarity. For anyone who dared to ask what happened. Because Arden wasn't just a liar. She was a brand new version of herself. One she built over the bones of who I used to be. And that version of her, I was going to make sure the world saw it for exactly what it was. Court wasn't dramatic like the movies. There were no loud objections, no slamming fists. Just paperwork, evidence, and silence. Arden barely looked at me during the proceedings. She came in polished, unbothered, wearing that same blazer she used to say made her feel untouchable. But her confidence cracked when my lawyer dropped the folder of evidence on the table. Emails, photos, recordings, testimonies. Her carefully curated version of our marriage couldn't survive that kind of truth. She tried to negotiate. Quietly. Offered to settle. Even told her lawyer she wanted to avoid dragging things out. But it was too late. The moment she built her future on lies, she signed away the right to exit clean. I didn't fight for vengeance. I fought for clarity. For the version of me she erased. And I got it. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post some triumphant, "I'm free" speech online. I just stood outside the courthouse, alone, under a sky that finally felt like it belonged to me again. The air felt different. Lighter. Real. Now, I've moved into a new place. Smaller, quieter. The furniture is mismatched, the windows squeak when they open, and the plumbing makes weird noises at night. But it's mine. Every part of it. There are no ghosts in the closet. No lies under the mattress. Just space. And silence. And truth. I started journaling too. Funny, right? The guy who used to apologize for being too emotional now fills pages every night. But it helps. It reminds me that I existed long before Arden's story, and I'll keep existing long after it. A few days ago, I even joined a local photography group, something I always wanted to do but never had the right time for. Turns out, I'm not half bad with a camera. I caught a photo of an old man feeding birds by the lake, and for the first time in months, I smiled without faking it. Sometimes I still think about her. Not with bitterness, just with the kind of sadness you feel when you remember someone who never really knew you, even after years. But I've stopped wondering what she's doing or who she's with. That story's no longer mine to follow. Because now, I'm writing my own. Thank you for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever caught someone rewriting your place in their life and found a way to start over, share your experience in the comments. And tell us, what moment in this story shocked you the most? We read everything. See you in the next one.